All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about what an expert told me about Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather Jr., also heiress Landy Lara and Austin Trout, and how it explains a lot about what is going on right now with Canelo Alvarez in boxing. And the short of it is that Canelo Alvarez, despite everything that everybody said, had a significant amount of his confidence taken from him from Floyd Mayweather Jr. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We are going to talk about Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Canelo Alvarez, and specifically one of the underlying reasons why Canelo Alvarez has decided to join the European Boxing League and no longer fight certain types of fighters. But before I get into that, though, let me first thank you so much for your support for the channel. I know some of you guys, fellow Canelo Alvarez fans, are not going to like what I have to say, or not like to say, what I'm going to repeat and share with you, but it is what it is. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Okay, so here we go. I was talking with an associate of mine, former professional trainer, has been in boxing a very, very long time. Talk to him on a regular basis about what he thinks about, certain fighters. And so talk to him about Floyd Mayweather, about Canelo Alvarez, and tried to get into the bottom of exactly why it is that Canelo Alvarez, seemingly will not fight will not fight Black American fighters, or not fighting Mexican fighters. And because my thought was, look, man, the guy got $160 million for a 3-fight deal. My understanding is it's a 3-fight deal, not a 2-fight deal, but a 3-fight deal, one in May, one in September, and another one in December, similar to what he had done a couple years ago, right? One is against Bivol, the other one's against Gennady Golovkin. The third, we do not know who it is, but I asked, do you think that it will be Demetrius Andrade? And the answer was affirmative. Come on, no. No, he's not going to do that. And I was like, okay, well, what do you think? Why is this? And the answer was that Floyd Mayweather Jr. got his confidence. That Floyd Mayweather Jr. snatched Canelo Alvarez's confidence and snatched Eddie Reynoso's confidence in him to be able to fight and beat these type of guys. And he's like, do not think about this. Go back to what happened to Canelo Alvarez at 154 pounds when he fought Floyd Mayweather Jr. and what happened after that. A lot of people forget that Canelo Alvarez lost basically 2 out of 3 fights. One to Floyd Mayweather Jr. and one to heiress Landy Lara. And the one with Floyd Mayweather Jr. was such a one-sided fight that Canelo Alvarez does not want to fight gifted, talented fighters anymore. And that is guys with very good footwork, guys that are fast, guys that are awkward, not somebody that is going to be standing there right there in front of you where you can outthink them and you can predict what they're going to do. And if you look at who Canelo Alvarez has fought ever since that heiress Landy Lara fight, where he lost that fight to heiress Landy Lara, they've been guys that are very, very predictable. It doesn't matter the size of the guy. And this is another point that was brought up, that when you look at Canelo Alvarez and you look at it in a historical standpoint, right? What weight classes is he competing in? And where I'm talking about in historical context, where you had an original 8 weight classes. The original 8 weight classes are 126, 130, maybe like 115. I forget what the first one is. However, for the ones that he's fighting in, you go basically from 135 to 147. Then from 147, you went to 160. And from 160, you went to 175. And from 175, you went to heavyweight. And that is the vast majority of time in boxing up until like the 1980s, when people started recognizing these in-between classes. But if you look at it, Canelo Alvarez went pro at, I think he may have been welterweight early in his career, but when he came to America, he was at 154, which is really a middleweight. Between 147 and 160 it was the middleweight division. Between 160 and 175 was the light heavyweight division. So Canelo Alvarez came in fighting smaller middleweights and then moved to middleweight. And then he went to 168 where he's fighting smaller light heavyweights, and then he fought at light heavyweight. But basically his entire career has been fighting in two historical weight classes, the middleweight division and the light heavyweight division. But his ability to beat smaller middleweights and smaller, quicker light heavyweights are his problem, and what he does not feel that he can do very well, because he was very confident in their camp, despite what everybody else says. Their camp was very, very confident that Canelo Alvarez was going to be able to beat Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather is a guy that pretty much was a lightweight, and again, doing the thing with the historical weight classes and not doing the juniors and the middles and the supers. A guy that turned pro at 130 pounds, which is a lightweight, right? From 130, 135, and then he went to welterweight, which is the 140 to the 147 in a historical sense, right? You can put the two extra weight classes in there, but again, if you're looking at what guys were fighting at, like Henry Armstrong, if you're looking at who like Harry Greb, guys like that, Willie Pep, guys like that were fighting around those weight classes. Those were the weight classes they were going through. And some of them were smaller, some of them were bigger. They didn't have all of that deviation. Regardless, Floyd Mayweather Jr. just beat him so bad with his quickness and his athletic talent. Erislandy Lara beat him with his athletic talent, because those are things that you cannot outthink that. If a guy is close to as skilled as you, but he's just faster, he has better reflexes, he moves better, his hand speed is better. All of those things make outthinking a fighter a lot more difficult. And what kind of style has Canelo Alvarez been using ever since he lost to Floyd Mayweather Jr. and again to our Erislandy Lara? He's been fighting guys that he can walk down, who are not particularly fleet of foot, guys that do not necessarily punch hard, and he's walking down. And it can be equated to this. Like, you have a guy that goes to the NBA out of college and realizes, dang, man, these guys are a lot faster than me. And so what do? They get a gigantic contract to go fight in Japan. And pretty much that's what Canelo Alvarez is doing with these pick of fighters that he's been having ever since he went to the zone. He's been protected against fighters that are quick, fast, and have enough power and are difficult to predict. Even in this conversation with about Arthur Beterbiev, about Bivol, right? Bivol is a good fighter. However, Bivol is a straight up and down fighter. He has predictable combinations. You know what he's going to do. You can prepare for what he's going to do. And if you can neutralize that, you're going to be able to win the fight. He's not going to be out there outthinking you. He's not out there moving around at 100 miles an hour, switching stances, switching guards, doing all kind of different stuff that people do who like Floyd Mayweather Jr. or like an Erislandy Lara or like a Demetrius Andrade. Not going to do, though they do not have that type of, at the end of the day, talent. And Canelo Alvarez is a very, very good fighter. He's a talented fighter. He's a smart fighter. However, his talent, the talent level, the physical speed, the physical talent level of he is not on the level of a guy like Floyd Mayweather Jr. And Floyd Mayweather Jr. proved that when he fought him, and Erislandy Lara proved that when he fought him, and he has not wanted to come anywhere near that ever since, or at least his camp hasn't. And then it doesn't hurt when you get $160 million to avoid it and go play in a Euro League, right? Hey, like, all right, if I ain't got to guard these quick guards, and that's a thing that people keep twisting up about boxing. It's not all about size, speed, quickness, and all of that stuff come into play. And Canelo Alvarez is not a particularly fast guy. He doesn't have particularly fast feet. If he has to be around somebody that is going to be able to move in, get in and out on him before he can throw his combinations, he's going to have difficulty. So he decided not to fight those anymore, at least to date. He has decided not to do that. And from the money that they're giving out to the zone for whatever you're calling it, It doesn't look like he is. I had some faith in what people told me about Jermall Charlo, because I was like, man, Jermall Charlo isn't, he's not somebody that's super quick, fleet of foot. He can crack, right? But he didn't fit that model. With Demetrius Andrade, I knew for sure he's not going to fight Demetrius Andrade. And when he talks about Demetrius Andrade, he doesn't sound confident. When he talked about, oh, you just want payday, and you're a terrible fighter. You fight against no one and all upset. No, man. He knows that guy right over there is not easy money. That is not something and even if you look at the fight with Caleb Plant is not particularly, he's a good fighter, but he's not a very experienced fighter. He's a top level fighter, but he's not an A+ level talent. He's not somebody that Canelo Alvarez would not be able to find eventually in that ring, like somebody like an Erislandy Lara or somebody like a Demetrius Andrade. But anyway, it is what it is. Y'all let me know what you think. I'm sure a lot of people are not going to like that, but you just got to call it like it is, man. The money is one thing, but my understanding is from Steven Espinoza that Steven Espinoza offered more money for the Canelo Alvarez fight, for the Jermall Charlo and the David Benavidez fight than he got over on DAZN. And if that is true, it's not about the money. It's about his ability to beat these guys. And at the end of the day, his confidence level with talented fighters, because he keeps running the guys that are not that talent or not elite athletes is what I'll say. His problem with dealing with elite athletes. And that's what it looks like that why all this stuff is going on. That's the take I got from my guy. And I got to tell you, I think that's a good analysis. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.